The tribunal chamber erupted in gasps as Alpha Achilles raised his hand, Luna claws extending from his fingertips with a metallic whisper that silenced the crowd. Celeste stood before him, chains binding her wrists, blood already trickling from the corner of her mouth where a guard had struck her moments before. Her wolf whimpered inside her, cowering from the power radiating off the most feared alpha in the Northern Territories. "You accuse me of witchcraft," Celeste said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I've done nothing except heal your sister when your pack doctors said she would die." Achilles' expression remained carved from granite. "My sister now speaks of visions, of prophecies, of things no wolf should know." He took a step closer, and Celeste could smell the pine and leather scent that marked him as something far more dangerous than an ordinary alpha. "The punishment for dark magic is death. But first, I will burn the witch sight from your eyes so you can never curse another member of my pack." Celeste's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd known coming to the Shadowfang pack was dangerous. She'd known offering her healing services would draw attention she couldn't afford. But Achilles' sister had been dying, poison coursing through her veins, and Celeste couldn't stand by and watch someone perish when she had the power to help. She just hadn't expected the girl to wake up changed, her wolf suddenly able to sense things beyond the normal pack bond, able to glimpse fragments of possible futures. "Alpha, please," Celeste's voice cracked. "I only wanted to help. I'm not a witch. I'm just a healer from the borderlands. Nothing more." "Then explain why my sister can now see through lies," Achilles growled. "Explain why she knew the Beta's son planned to challenge me before he'd even drawn his weapon. Explain why she woke screaming about a war coming from the east, about shadow wolves that walk between worlds." Around them, the pack elders muttered darkly. Celeste could see it in their faces, the fear, the suspicion, the certainty that she'd brought some terrible curse into their midst. She'd been foolish to think she could help without consequences. Her grandmother had warned her that their bloodline carried gifts that others would never understand, that wolves feared what they couldn't explain. "I don't know why she can see those things," Celeste whispered. "I only healed her wounds. I pulled the poison from her blood. Whatever else happened, I didn't intend it." "Intention doesn't matter," Achilles said coldly. "You've corrupted my sister with dark magic, and now I will ensure you never do it again." He moved with the terrible speed of an alpha wolf, closing the distance between them before Celeste could even think to flinch away. His hand gripped her jaw, forcing her to look up at him, and she saw something flicker in his dark eyes. Something that might have been regret, or perhaps just the reflection of the torches burning along the chamber walls. "If you have any gods," he said quietly, meant only for her ears, "pray they grant you mercy, because I cannot." Then his Luna claws struck, 2 precise slashes across both her eyes, and the world exploded into white-hot agony. Celeste screamed, the sound tearing from her throat as she felt her eyes burning, melting, reforming under the supernatural power of an alpha's claws. Luna claws weren't just weapons. They carried the concentrated essence of wolf magic, could wound in ways that never healed properly, could mark a wolf so deeply that even their beast would carry the scars. The pain swallowed everything. Celeste felt herself falling, felt the cold stone of the tribunal floor rise up to meet her, felt warm blood streaming down her face. Her wolf inside her, a mournful sound that echoed through her bones. She was blind. He'd blinded her, She would never see the sunrise again, never watch the moon rise over the mountains, never look into another person's eyes and know if they meant her harm. Except the darkness didn't last. At first, Celeste thought she was hallucinating from the pain. The blackness behind her ruined eyes began to shimmer, to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. Then, light broke through, but not the warm orange glow of torches or the cold white of moonlight. This light was silver and purple and colors she didn't have names for, colors that shouldn't exist in the natural world. When Celeste opened her eyes, or tried to, the motion felt strange, like she was opening something that existed beyond her physical eyelids. She didn't see the tribunal chamber. She saw layers. The stone floor beneath her existed, solid and real, but she could also see through it to the earth below, to the bones of the mountain the pack den was built into, to the veins of crystal running through rock like frozen rivers. When she turned her head toward Achilles, she didn't just see the Alpha standing over her. She saw the massive black wolf inside him, larger than any wolf should be, its eyes burning with power. But beyond that, she saw something else. A golden thread that connected him to every member of his pack. Thousands of thin lines of light that pulsed with the rhythm of heartbeats. "What did you do to me?" Celeste breathed, her voice raw. The pack elders rushed forward. Someone was shouting for the healers, but Celeste barely heard them. She pushed herself up to sitting, chains rattling, and looked down at her own hands. They were still flesh and bone, still marked with small scars from years of gathering herbs in the wild places. But when she concentrated, she could see through them to the network of bones beneath, to the blood pumping through her veins, and deeper still, to a core of light that pulsed inside her chest where her heart should be. "Impossible," someone whispered. Celeste raised her head and saw the elder who'd spoken. She saw his wolf, gray and grizzled with age. She saw the pack bonds connecting him to the others. But she also saw something darker, a shadow wrapped around his heart like a parasitic vine, pulsing with sick energy. "You're dying," Celeste said, the words falling from her lips before she could stop them. "There's something wrong with your heart, a growth. It's spreading into your lungs." The elder's face went pale. "How could you possibly?" "By the goddess," another elder breathed. "Her eyes." Achilles crouched down in front of Celeste, his hands shooting out to grip her chin again, this time forcing her to meet his gaze. She could feel the strength in his fingers, could have counted his bones if she wanted to. But what caught her attention was his expression. No longer cold and certain, but shocked and something else. Something almost like awe. "Your eyes," he said slowly. "They're white. Pure white. And they're glowing." Celeste blinked, and the action sent ripples through the layers of reality she could now perceive. "What did you do to me?" she asked again, her voice stronger now despite the fear coursing through her. "Luna claws are meant to destroy," Achilles said, his grip on her chin loosening but not releasing. "They burn out whatever magic exists in a wolf, leave them powerless. I've used them dozens of times to punish those who broke pack law. They've never done this." "Then what am I seeing?" Celeste demanded. "Tell me exactly what you see when you look at me." Celeste met his dark eyes, and this time she let herself truly look. She saw the Alpha, tall and powerful, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and a face that could have been carved by someone who wanted to create the perfect predator. She saw the scars that marked his arms and chest beneath his shirt, evidence of countless battles. She saw his wolf, magnificent and deadly. But beneath all of that, she saw his soul, a core of silver light wrapped in chains of responsibility and duty, pulsing with a loneliness so profound it made her chest ache. "I see everything," she whispered. "Your wolf, your pack bonds, the weight you carry, the loneliness that's eating you alive from the inside." Achilles released her chin as if she'd burned him. He stood abruptly, backing away several steps. Around them, the pack elders muttered nervously, and Celeste could see fear radiating off them in waves of murky brown energy. "She's too dangerous to live," one of the elders declared. "Alpha, you must finish this. Execute her now before whatever corruption she carries spreads." But Achilles held up a hand, silencing the protests. His eyes remained locked on Celeste, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You're not a witch," he said slowly, as if working through a puzzle. "But you're not entirely wolf either. What are you?" "I don't know," Celeste admitted. "My grandmother told stories about our bloodline, about gifts that ran in our family. She said we were descended from the first wolves, from the ones who walked closest to the spirit world. But she died before she could teach me everything." "The first wolves," one of the elders scoffed. "Old legends, fairy tales to frighten pups." "The first wolves could see into all realms," another elder said quietly. This was an older woman, her silver hair braided down her back, her eyes distant with memory. "My grandmother spoke of them too. She said they were bridge walkers, able to move between the physical world and the spirit realm, able to see truth in all its forms." "Those were stories," the first elder insisted. "Perhaps." The old woman moved closer to Celeste, studying her with eyes that had seen decades of pack life. "Or perhaps some stories carry more truth than we remember." "Child, can you see me? Truly see me?" Celeste looked at the woman and gasped. Unlike the others, whose wolves appeared strong and vibrant inside them, this woman's wolf was fading. It was still there, but translucent, barely more than a silver outline. "Your wolf is leaving," Celeste said softly. "Not because you're dying, but because she's ready to return to the spirit realm. She's tired. She's served you well, but she wants to rest." Tears filled the old woman's eyes. "I felt it," she whispered. "For months now. I felt her pulling away. I thought I was going mad." "You're not mad," Celeste assured her. "She's just ready for the journey, and she's grateful for the life you shared." The chamber fell silent. Even the skeptical elders seemed uncertain now, their conviction wavering in the face of something they couldn't explain or deny. Celeste felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her, felt the fear and fascination radiating from the assembled pack members. Achilles was the one to finally break the silence. "Take the chains off her." "Alpha, you can't be serious," an elder protested. "She's dangerous. She's already corrupted your sister, and now you want to set her free?" "I said remove the chains," Achilles repeated, his voice dropping into an alpha command that made every wolf in the room instinctively lower their heads in submission. A guard hurried forward, fumbling with the keys. The moment the chains fell away from Celeste's wrists, she felt the strange new sight intensify. The layers of reality seemed to multiply, showing her not just what was, but what could be. Branching paths of possibility that spread out from every person in the room, like roads on a map. She looked at Achilles and saw a dozen different futures radiating from him. In one, he executed her as the elders demanded, but his sister's visions grew stronger and more troubling until they drove her mad. In another, he let Celeste go, but war came from the east, just as his sister had predicted, and he faced it alone and unprepared. In a third, he kept Celeste close, used her abilities to protect his pack, but the strain of living with her strange powers eventually destroyed the delicate trust they built. But there was one path that glowed brighter than the others, one possibility that pulsed with golden light. In that future, Achilles claimed her as his mate, and together they faced the coming darkness with power enough to reshape the world. "What do you see now?" Achilles asked, his voice closer than she expected. He'd moved toward her while she was lost in the visions, and now he stood only a foot away, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Choices," Celeste said honestly. "Possible futures. Some lead to ruin, some lead to survival. And one what?" She met his eyes, those dark depths that now seemed to hide fewer secrets from her enhanced sight. "One leads to something impossible. Something that shouldn't exist but could change everything." Achilles studied her for a long moment, and Celeste could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was a tactical alpha, someone who thought 3 moves ahead, who weighed every decision against the safety of his pack. He was also deeply alone, she realized. The power of an alpha this strong meant no one could truly stand beside him as an equal. Even his beta, whose golden bond she could see connecting him to Achilles, carried an undercurrent of fear beneath his loyalty. "The elders want me to kill you," Achilles said quietly. "They believe you're a threat to pack stability. Are they right?" "I don't know," Celeste admitted. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know it was possible. But I can't change what I am now, what your claws awakened in me." "No," he agreed. "You can't." He turned to address the assembled pack. "I'm claiming her under Alpha protection. Anyone who harms her will answer to me directly." The pronouncement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Claiming someone under Alpha protection was serious. It meant Celeste would be treated as though she were Achilles' own family, that any attack on her would be considered an attack on the Alpha himself. "You can't mean that," an elder sputtered. "She's an outsider, a witch, and now she has these unnatural powers." "Powers that might save this pack," Achilles interrupted. "My sister's visions speak of war, of shadow wolves that move between dimensions. If Celeste can truly see into other realms, if she can perceive threats before they manifest, then she's exactly the weapon we need." Celeste felt a chill run through her at being called a weapon, but she understood the strategic thinking. Achilles was a warrior first, an alpha second. He saw the world in terms of threats and assets, dangers and defenses. And right now, she'd just been categorized as potentially useful. "I won't be your weapon," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Achilles turned back to her, one eyebrow raised. "No?" "No," Celeste confirmed. "I'm not a tool to be used. I'm a person, a wolf. And whatever these powers are, they're mine. If you want my help, you'll ask for it. You won't command it." A murmur rippled through the watching pack. No one spoke to an alpha like that, especially not someone who'd just been on trial for witchcraft. But Celeste had spent her whole life being underestimated, being treated as less than. She'd been an orphan raised on the borderlands, scraped by on charity and hard work, learned healing from an old grandmother who'd seen her potential when no one else had. She'd watched that grandmother die because no pack would accept them, wouldn't let them stay long enough to put down roots and build a real life. She was done being powerless. These strange white eyes might terrify her, but they also made her strong in ways she'd never been before. Achilles stared at her for several heartbeats, and Celeste could see his wolf rising inside him, could see the alpha instinct warring with something else. Respect, maybe, or curiosity. Finally, his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but wasn't entirely cold either. "You've got fire," he said. "I'll give you that." He extended his hand toward her. "Then I'm asking, Celeste from the borderlands, will you use your gifts to help protect my pack from the threats my sister has foreseen?" Celeste looked at his outstretched hand and saw all the possible futures that contact might create. Some were dark, full of pain and betrayal, but others glowed with possibility, with connection, with something that looked almost like belonging. She'd spent her entire life searching for a place to call home, for people who wouldn't turn her away when times got hard. Maybe this was it. Maybe this terrifying alpha with his lonely soul and his heavy crown of responsibility was the answer she'd been seeking. She placed her hand in his, and the moment their skin touched, the vision slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. She saw Achilles standing beside her on a battlefield, his black wolf form larger than any she'd ever witnessed, fighting against creatures made of shadow and nightmare. She saw herself, with eyes blazing white, pulling power from the spirit realm to protect the pack. She saw the two of them claiming each other under a full moon, their wolves intertwining in a bond so powerful it would reshape the very fabric of pack law. And beneath it all, she saw the truth. They were fated mates. The moon goddess herself had woven their paths together long before either of them was born. Achilles' Luna claws hadn't destroyed her magic. They'd awakened it, triggered the latent gifts in her bloodline specifically because she was meant to stand beside him. The pain, the trial, even the risk of death, all of it had been necessary to forge her into what she needed to become. "Goddess above," Celeste breathed. "What?" Achilles demanded. "What do you see?" But Celeste couldn't tell him. Not here, not now, not in front of the elders and the entire pack. The knowledge of a fated mate bond was too precious, too dangerous. If his enemies knew, and she could see from the shadowy doubts surrounding several of the watching wolves that he had enemies, even within his own pack, they would use it against him. "I see possibility," she said instead. "I see a chance to do something that matters. Yes, Alpha, I'll help protect your pack." The elders continued to protest, but Achilles silenced them with a look. "The tribunal is ended," he declared. "Celeste will stay in the pack house, under my direct protection, while we determine the full extent of her abilities. Anyone who questions this decision can challenge me for Alpha." No one moved. No one would be foolish enough to challenge Achilles. His reputation as a warrior was legendary throughout the Northern Territories. He'd killed 3 alphas in formal combat before taking control of the Shadowfang pack, had united 7 smaller packs under his rule through a combination of strategic brilliance and raw power. The crowd began to disperse, though Celeste could feel their eyes on her, could see the threads of speculation and fear that followed her like smoke. She remained standing beside Achilles, very aware that her hand was still in his, that neither of them had pulled away from that initial contact. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. Celeste realized she was trembling, her body only now processing the trauma of what had happened to her eyes. "I think so." "Then come. We have much to discuss." He led her from the tribunal chamber through corridors carved from mountain stone. The pack house was built into the mountainside itself, a fortress that had stood for generations. Celeste's new sight showed her the bones of the building, the clever engineering that made it nearly impossible to assault, the wards scratched into support beams by long-dead pack shamans who'd tried to protect their people from supernatural threats. Wolves moved out of their way as they passed, and Celeste could see the complex web of pack bonds that connected them all. Every wolf was linked to Achilles by that golden thread, but the bonds varied in strength. Some pulsed with fierce loyalty, others flickered with barely concealed resentment, and a few carried undertones of something darker. Ambition, perhaps, or jealousy. "Your pack isn't as unified as it appears," Celeste said softly, as they climbed a staircase carved from living rock. "I know," Achilles replied. "I conquered this territory, which means I inherited enemies along with allies. Some wolves serve me because they respect my strength, others because they fear it, and a few are simply waiting for me to show weakness so they can try to take what I've built." "That's a heavy burden." "It's the price of power." He pushed open a heavy wooden door, revealing a suite of rooms that were clearly his private quarters. The space was austere but functional. A large bed, a desk covered in maps and reports, weapons mounted on the walls, and a balcony that overlooked the valley below. Achilles gestured for her to sit in one of the chairs near the fireplace. Celeste sank into it gratefully, her legs finally giving out after the adrenaline of the tribunal wore off. She was exhausted, her body aching from the chains and the beating, her eyes still burning faintly from the Luna claw wounds. "Let me see your eyes," Achilles commanded, pulling another chair close to hers. Celeste tilted her face up toward him, and he leaned in to study the damage he'd inflicted. His fingers were gentle as they tilted her chin, far gentler than she would have expected from someone with such a fearsome reputation. She could see his wolf prowling just beneath his skin, agitated by her presence in ways he didn't seem to fully understand yet. "They're completely white," he murmured. "No iris, no pupil, just solid white with that silver glow. Does it hurt?" "Not anymore," Celeste admitted. "It did when you first struck me. I thought I would die from the pain." Guilt flashed across his features, quickly suppressed. "I've used Luna Claws dozens of times. They're meant to neutralize rogue magic, to prevent witches from cursing pack members. I've never seen them do anything except destroy." "Maybe that's because you've never used them on someone like me," Celeste suggested. "Someone with old blood, first wolf blood." "Perhaps." He sat back slightly but didn't move away. "Tell me everything you can see now. Don't hide anything. If you're going to live in my pack, I need to know exactly what you're capable of." So Celeste explained. She told him about the layers of reality, how she could see through solid matter to the bones of the world beneath. She described the pack bonds, the golden threads that connected him to every wolf under his protection. She spoke of the possible futures that branched from every decision, the way choices created roads that could be traveled or abandoned. And finally, though it made her nervous, She told him about the shadows she could see clinging to certain pack members, the darkness of hidden intentions, the murky energy of deception. Achilles listened intently, his expression growing more thoughtful with each revelation. "Can you identify who carries those shadows?" "Yes," Celeste confirmed, "though I'm not sure how accurate I am yet. I'm still learning to interpret what I see." "I want you to make me a list," Achilles said. "Everyone you see carrying darkness. Every wolf whose intentions seem suspicious. Can you do that?" Celeste hesitated. "That feels like spying, like betraying their privacy." "It's protection," Achilles countered. "I have enemies within my own pack, wolves who smile to my face and plot behind my back. My beta does what he can to identify threats, but he's limited by the fact that wolves have gotten very good at lying. If you can see through deception, if you can identify traitors before they strike, you could save lives." "Or I could be wrong," Celeste pointed out. "What if I see shadows on someone who's actually loyal but just struggling with doubts? What if my interpretations lead you to punish innocent wolves?" "Then we'll investigate carefully before taking action," Achilles said. "I'm not asking you to condemn anyone. I'm asking you to give me information so I can protect my pack more effectively." It made sense from a tactical perspective, but Celeste still felt uneasy about using her gifts this way. She'd been raised to believe that healing was sacred, that the abilities her grandmother had taught her were meant to help people, not spy on them. But then again, her grandmother had also warned her that sometimes protecting the innocent meant being willing to identify the guilty. "I'll make you a list," she agreed finally. "But I reserve the right to refuse if you ask me to do something I believe is wrong." Achilles' mouth quirked slightly. "You really don't know how to submit to an alpha, do you?" "I've never had an alpha worth submitting to," Celeste replied honestly. "I've only ever met tyrants who demanded obedience without earning respect. And what am I?" Celeste looked at him with her enhanced sight, seeing past the fearsome reputation and the alpha power to the complicated soul underneath. "You're someone who carries too much weight alone. Someone who's forgotten that strength doesn't mean isolation. You've built walls so high that even your own pack can't truly reach you anymore." The words seemed to hit Achilles harder than she'd intended. She watched his expression close off, watched him retreat behind the mask of the unshakable alpha. But she'd seen the flicker of pain first, the recognition that she'd struck too close to a truth he usually kept buried. "Get some rest," Achilles said, standing abruptly. "There's a bedroom through that door. I'll have my sister bring you clean clothes and food. Tomorrow we'll begin testing the limits of your abilities." "Where will you sleep?" Celeste asked, noticing that he'd just offered her his own bed. "I have a study where I can work through the night. I don't sleep much anyway." He moved toward the door, clearly eager to put distance between them. "Achilles," Celeste called, surprising herself with the casual use of his name. He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. "Thank you for not killing me," she said softly. "I know it would have been easier." "Easier isn't always right," he replied. Then he was gone, the door closing firmly behind him. Celeste sat alone in the Alpha's chambers, her white eyes taking in every detail of the space. She could see where Achilles had stood at that window countless times, could trace the ghost of his presence in the way the pack bonds seemed to converge on this room, like roads leading to a capital. She saw the weight of his responsibilities hanging in the air like invisible chains, saw the loneliness that permeated every corner of this fortress he'd built. And she saw the golden thread that now connected the two of them, thin but growing stronger, the first manifestation of a fated mate bond that neither of them had acknowledged yet. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She would have to learn to control these powers, would have to navigate the dangerous politics of a pack that didn't trust her, would have to prove herself worthy of the protection Achilles had offered. But for tonight, she was alive, she was safe, and she had a purpose. Celeste moved to the bedroom Achilles had indicated and found it surprisingly comfortable. A large bed with soft furs, a wash basin with clean water, even a small balcony that looked out over the moonlit valley. She cleaned the dried blood from her face, noting with strange detachment that the wounds Achilles had inflicted on her eyes had healed completely. There wasn't even a scar, just the permanent change of color and the endless layers of sight that now defined her existence. She collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion finally claiming her. But even as she drifted toward sleep, her enhanced sight remained active. She saw the pack house around her, saw the wolves sleeping in their rooms throughout the mountain. She saw Achilles in his study, bent over maps and reports, his wolf restless inside him. And she saw the shadows gathering at the edges of the territory, dark things that moved between dimensions, the threat his sister had predicted coming closer with each passing night. War was coming. Darkness is rising. And somehow, a borderland orphan with white eyes and impossible powers was supposed to help stop it. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, as Celeste's eyes finally closed and sleep claimed her, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. The next morning arrived too quickly. Celeste woke to sunlight streaming through the balcony doors and the sound of someone moving around in the main room. She pushed herself upright, momentarily disoriented by the layers of reality that her enhanced sight showed her even through closed eyelids. It took effort to focus on just the physical world, to filter out the spirit realm and the branching paths of possibility. A young woman stood in the main room, her arms full of clothes. She had Achilles' dark hair and sharp features, though her face was more delicate, feminine. The family resemblance was unmistakable. "You must be his sister," Celeste said, emerging from the bedroom. The woman jumped slightly, then turned to face her. When she saw Celeste's white eyes, she gasped. "By the goddess! He really did it! I thought maybe I'd dreamed it." "You didn't dream it," Celeste confirmed. "I'm Celeste, and you're the one whose life I saved, though I'm told I also cursed you with visions in the process." "I'm Thalia," the young woman said, setting down the clothes. "And you didn't curse me. You freed me." She moved closer, studying Celeste with an intensity that reminded her of Achilles. "I can see things now, fragments of what might be. It's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't understand any of it, but I don't think it's a curse." Celeste reached out with her enhanced sight and examined Thalia's wolf. The creature was strong and healthy, pulsing with silver light. But there was something else there, too. A gossamer veil that seemed to drift around Thalia like smoke, connecting her to timelines that hadn't happened yet, to possibilities that existed only in potential. "You're a seer," Celeste said with certainty. "Whatever poison was in your blood, whatever I did to heal you, it awakened a latent gift in your bloodline." "Like what happened to you," Thalia said. "When Achilles used his Luna claws, he thought he was destroying your magic, but he awakened it instead." "Exactly." Celeste examined the other woman more closely. "Tell me, what do you see when I look at me?" Thalia's expression grew distant, unfocused. "I see a wolf with white eyes, standing between worlds, holding back darkness with nothing but her will. I see an alpha's mate who will reshape the laws of pack society. I see a woman who will have to choose between saving one person she loves or saving thousands she's never met. And I see... She blinked, coming back to herself. I see my sister-in-law, eventually, if you both survive what's coming. The casual confirmation of the mate bond should have shocked Celeste, but she'd already seen the truth in her own visions. Does Achilles know? That you're his fated mate? Not yet. He's very good at ignoring things that might complicate his tactical planning. Talia smiled slightly. But he will figure it out eventually. Probably when he tries to let you leave and discovers he physically cannot tolerate the distance between you. That sounds inconvenient. Fated mate bonds usually are, Talia agreed. They don't ask permission or wait for convenient timing. They just exist. And you have to decide whether to accept them or fight them. Celeste moved to the window, looking out over the valley. In the morning light, she could see the full extent of the Shadowfang Pack's territory. Miles of forest and mountain, small villages scattered through the lowlands, wolves going about their daily routines. She could also see the wards, old magic that ringed the territory like a fence, designed to keep out supernatural threats. Those wards were weakening. She could see the places where they'd begun to fray, where darkness was already seeping through. The shadow wolves your brother mentioned, Celeste said. They're not just coming, they're already here. Small breaches in the territory wards. I can see them with these eyes. Talia joined her at the window, though Celeste suspected she couldn't see what Celeste saw. In my visions, they appear as wolves made of living darkness. They can slip between dimensions, can strike from angles that shouldn't exist in our reality. The normal pack defenses won't work against them. But maybe mine will, Celeste said slowly. If I can see into other dimensions, if I can perceive the places where they're crossing over, maybe I can find a way to stop them. That's what Achilles is counting on, Talia said. Though he'd never admit he's counting on anyone, he still thinks he has to carry every burden alone. Why? Celeste turned to face the other woman. Why does he isolate himself so completely? Talia's expression grew sad. Our parents died when we were young, killed by a rival pack in a territorial dispute. Achilles was barely old enough to shift, but he had to step up, had to become an alpha before he was ready. He learned early that showing weakness meant death, that depending on others meant they could betray you. So he built walls, made himself into a weapon, convinced himself that he didn't need anyone. But everyone needs someone, Celeste protested. Try telling him that, Talia said wryly. He's saved me 12 times, protected me from threats I never even knew existed. But he's never let me return the favor. He's never let anyone close enough to actually help carry his burden. Celeste thought about the lonely soul she'd seen inside Achilles, the weight crushing him from all sides. Maybe it's time someone forced their way past his walls. Talia's smile widened. I think I'm going to like having you around. Now come on, get dressed. Achilles will be expecting you in the training yard within the hour. And trust me, you don't want to be late. The clothes Talia had brought were practical. Leather pants that would allow for easy movement, a soft tunic, boots designed for running. Celeste changed quickly, then followed Talia through the pack house. Her enhanced sight showed her so much more than she would have seen with normal eyes. She could see the history embedded in the stones, could trace the paths that generations of wolves had taken through these corridors. She could see the pack bonds connecting everyone, could identify the strongest warriors by the way their bonds pulsed with fierce energy. And she could see the shadows. They clung to 3 wolves in particular: an older male who worked in the kitchens, a younger female who served as one of the guards, and a middle-aged male who appeared to be some kind of advisor. The darkness around them wasn't overwhelming, but it was present, a murky energy that suggested hidden intentions. The training yard was located in a natural amphitheater carved into the mountainside. Dozens of wolves were already there, engaged in combat practice or weapon drills. They all stopped when Celeste appeared, their attention snapping to her white eyes. Achilles stood in the center of the yard, his shirt discarded despite the morning chill, his muscled chest marked with scars from countless battles. He was sparring with a large male Celeste identified as his beta, Theron, according to the whispers she caught from nearby wolves. The 2 of them moved with lethal grace, their strikes precise and controlled, despite the obvious power behind them. "She's here," Thalia announced unnecessarily, since every wolf in the yard was already staring. Achilles landed a final blow that sent his beta staggering, then turned to face Celeste. Even across the distance, she could feel the weight of his gaze, could see his wolf rising to the surface in response to her presence. The mate bond between them pulsed, still thin, but definitely present. "Good," Achilles said. "Celeste, come here." She walked across the yard, aware of every eye following her, every whisper that tracked her movements. When she reached Achilles, he gestured for her to stand beside him. "Most of you witnessed the tribunal yesterday," Achilles addressed the assembled wolves. "You saw what happened when I used Luna Claws on this woman. You saw her eyes change, saw evidence of powers we don't fully understand. I want to make one thing clear. Celeste is under my direct protection. Anyone who harms her will face me in personal combat. Understood?" A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the crowd. "Now," Achilles continued, turning his attention to Celeste, "show me what you can do. Look at this pack and tell me what you see." Celeste understood what he was really asking. He wanted her to identify the shadows, to point out the wolves who might pose a threat. But doing so publicly would be cruel, would mark those individuals as suspects without giving them a chance to defend themselves. "I see a pack divided," she said instead. "I see wolves who trust you and wolves who fear you. I see strength in many places, but also vulnerability. Your territory wards are failing, Achilles. There are already small breaches where darkness is seeping through." That got everyone's attention. Several wolves exchanged nervous glances. "Where?" Achilles demanded. Celeste pointed toward the eastern edge of the valley. "There, where the mountain meets the forest. The wards are frayed. Something has been testing them, wearing them down slowly over time." She turned, pointing to 2 other locations. "Here, and here as well. The breaches are small now, but they're growing." Achilles looked at his beta. "Theron, take a team to investigate those locations. Report back before nightfall." "Yes, Alpha," Theron said, already moving to gather warriors. "The rest of you, back to your duties," Achilles commanded. "I want patrols doubled at all border points. If there are breaches in the wards, there may be threats we haven't detected yet." The wolves dispersed quickly, though Celeste could feel their lingering fear and curiosity. Only Achilles, Thalia, and a few of the senior warriors remained. Walk with me, Achilles said to Celeste, already heading toward a path that led away from the training yard. She followed him through the forest, Thalia trailing several steps behind as an unspoken chaperone. Achilles moved with the easy confidence of a predator in his own territory, but Celeste could see the tension in his shoulders, could see his wolf prowling restlessly beneath his skin. "Tell me truthfully," Achilles said once they were far enough from the pack house for privacy. "How bad is it?" "The breaches? They're small now, but they're definitely there. Whatever created them is patient, working slowly to avoid detection. But if they continue to grow at the current rate, your entire territory will be compromised within a few months." "And the shadow wolves my sister saw in her visions?" "I haven't seen them yet," Celeste admitted. "But I believe they're related to the breaches. Something is trying to open doorways between dimensions, trying to give those creatures access to our world." Achilles stopped walking, turning to face her. "Can you stop them?" "I don't know," Celeste said honestly. "I barely understand these powers. I don't know their limits or how to control them properly. But I think I can at least see the breaches more clearly than anyone else, which means I can guide you to them." "That's a start." Achilles studied her for a long moment. "I need you to understand something, Celeste. This pack is everything to me. These wolves depend on me to keep them safe, to protect them from threats both physical and supernatural. I will do whatever it takes to ensure their survival, even if it means making choices that keep me awake at night." "I understand," Celeste said softly. "But Achilles, you don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. You have me now. You have these abilities that might actually be able to help. Let me be more than just a tool you use. Let me be a partner." Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or longing. But it was gone so quickly Celeste might have imagined it. "We'll see," was all he said. "For now, I want you to spend time with Thalia. Have her teach you about pack structure, about the politics you'll need to navigate. And I want you to start keeping that list we discussed, the wolves whose intentions seem suspicious." "I'll do it," Celeste agreed. "But Achilles, I won't condemn anyone without evidence beyond my sight. These powers are new. I could be wrong." Noted." He turned to continue walking, but Celeste reached out and caught his arm. The moment her fingers touched his skin, the mate bond flared between them like lightning, sending a jolt through both their bodies. Achilles froze, his eyes widening. He stared down at where her hand gripped his forearm, and Celeste could see him feeling it, the connection that bound them together, the recognition that this was more than just casual contact. "What was that?" he breathed. Celeste released him quickly, stepping back. "Nothing, just nothing." But they both knew she was lying. The mate bond was awakening, accelerated by her enhanced abilities and his alpha power. Soon it would be impossible to ignore, impossible to deny. "Celeste," Achilles began, but whatever he'd been about to say was interrupted by a howl from the direction of the territory border. It was a warning call, pitched with urgency. "They found something," Thalia said, her face pale. Achilles was already running, his wolf rising to the surface, ready to defend his pack from whatever threat had emerged. Celeste and Thalia raced after him, following the bond that connected all pack wolves to their alpha. They burst through the tree line to find Theron and his team gathered around one of the locations Celeste had identified. The breach was worse than she'd thought. What had appeared as a small tear from a distance revealed itself to be a gaping wound in reality itself. Through the opening, Celeste could see another dimension, a place of shadows and twisted geometries that hurt to look at, even with her enhanced sight. And standing at the edge of that wound, trapped between dimensions, was a wolf made entirely of living darkness. The shadow wolf snarled, its teeth dripping with void, its eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. It couldn't fully cross into their world yet. The breach wasn't wide enough. But it was trying, throwing its weight against the barrier, widening the tear with each assault. "Everyone back!" Achilles commanded, already shifting into his massive black wolf form. But Celeste moved forward instead, drawn by an instinct she didn't fully understand. Her white eyes blazed brighter, and she reached out with her new sight, examining the breach from every angle. She could see the structure of it, could see the magic that held it open, could see the way the shadow wolf was using its own dark energy to widen the gap. "I can close it," she heard herself say. "What?" Achilles, now back in human form, grabbed her shoulder. "Celeste, we don't even know what that thing is, let alone how to fight it." "I can see the structure of the breach," Celeste explained, still staring at the wound between dimensions. "I can see how it's being held open. If I can just—" She reached out with her will, focusing her enhanced sight on the threads of magic that formed the breach. They were like wounds in the fabric of reality, torn edges that needed to be pulled back together. Celeste had spent years as a healer, had learned to sense the body's natural patterns, to guide flesh back to wholeness. This was similar, just on a cosmic scale. She began to pull. The shadow wolf howled, a sound that scraped against the inside of her skull. It redoubled its efforts, trying to force its way through before Celeste could seal the breach. But she was faster. She wove the threads of reality back together, pulling the torn edges closed, forcing the dimensional wound to heal. The shadow wolf's howl cut off abruptly as the breach sealed completely. For a moment, Celeste could still see it on the other side of the barrier, trapped in its own dimension, furious at being denied entry. Then, even that vision faded as reality solidified, becoming whole again. Celeste collapsed to her knees, exhausted by the effort. Her white eyes dimmed slightly, and she could feel blood trickling from her nose. "By the goddess," someone whispered. Achilles was beside her in an instant, his hand steadying her. "Are you hurt?" "Just tired," Celeste managed. "That took more energy than I expected." "You sealed a dimensional breach," Thalia said, her voice full of awe. "Celeste, do you understand what that means? Seers can predict threats, but you just actively defended against one. You didn't just see the danger, you stopped it." Celeste wiped the blood from her nose and looked up at Achilles. His face was unreadable, but she could see his wolf inside him, could see the complex tangle of emotions he was trying to process. Respect, gratitude, fear of depending on someone, and beneath it all, the growing awareness of the mate bond that connected them. "Can you do that for all the breaches?" he asked quietly. "I think so," Celeste said. "But there are at least 3 others, and each one will exhaust me. I'll need time to recover between attempts." "Then we'll do them one at a time," Achilles decided. "Theron, I want warriors stationed at each breach location. If Celeste can seal them, we'll make sure they stay sealed." He looked down at her, his hand still gripping her shoulder. "Can you stand?" "I think so." He helped her to her feet, and for a moment they stood very close, his hand steadying her, their wolves aware of each other in ways that transcended simple pack bonds. Celeste could see the exact moment Achilles realized what was happening between them, could see him understand, and then deliberately step back, putting distance between them. "Good work," he said formally. Then to the others, "Let's get back to the pack house. We have much to plan." They returned to find the pack buzzing with news of what had happened. Word had spread quickly that Celeste had sealed a dimensional breach, that she'd stopped a shadow wolf from entering their world. The wolves who'd been wary of her before now looked at her with something approaching reverence. Others regarded her with increased suspicion, convinced she was more dangerous than they'd initially believed. Celeste spent the rest of the day recovering and working with Thalia to understand pack politics. She learned the names of the various families, the alliances and feuds that went back generations, the delicate balance of power that kept everything functioning. And she started her list, carefully noting the wolves whose shadows seemed darkest, whose intentions felt most suspect. That night, she brought the list to Achilles in his study. He was bent over maps again, plotting patrol routes and defensive positions. When she entered, he looked up, and for a moment his guard was down. She saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight of responsibility that never lifted. "Here," she said, placing the paper on his desk. 3 names. But Achilles, please investigate carefully before taking action. I could be wrong about what I'm seeing." He picked up the list, his expression hardening as he read. "These 3. Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be. They all carry shadows that suggest hidden intentions. But shadows don't necessarily mean betrayal. They could just be doubts or fears or plans to murder me in my sleep," Achilles interrupted. "One of these names is particularly troubling. This advisor has been with the pack for 15 years. If he's turned against me..." "Then you need to know," Celeste finished. "But find proof before you act. Don't let my abilities become an excuse for tyranny." Achilles looked up at her, something like surprise crossing his features. "You're not afraid to challenge me, are you?" "Should I be?" "Most wolves are." "I'm not most wolves," Celeste pointed out. "And neither are you. You're better than the tyrants I've known, Achilles. Don't let the pressure of leadership turn you into one." He stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You see too much," he said. "Those white eyes show you things I'd prefer to keep hidden." "Like the fact that you're terrified of depending on anyone?" Celeste asked. "Or the fact that you're lonely enough to break but too proud to admit it?" "Celeste." "Or," she continued, "the fact that you feel the mate bond between us just as strongly as I do." The words hung in the air between them. Achilles' expression shifted through several emotions: denial, anger, resignation, before settling on something that looked almost like relief. "You know," he said finally, "it wasn't a question. I've known since the moment you touched my hand in the tribunal chamber," Celeste confirmed. "The vision showed me. We're fated mates, Achilles. The moon goddess bound us together long before we ever met." "That's impossible." "Is it? You used Luna Claws specifically meant to destroy magic, but instead, they awakened abilities I didn't know I had. Don't you find that convenient? Almost as if the goddess herself intervened to create exactly the weapon, the partner, you would need for the war your sister predicted?" Achilles turned away, moving to the window. "I don't want a fated mate. I don't want the vulnerability that comes with caring about someone that deeply." "I know," Celeste said, "but we don't always get to choose what the goddess gives us." I could reject you, Achilles said, though his voice lacked conviction. I could send you away, ensure we never complete the bond. You could try, Celeste agreed, but we both know you won't. Not because you want me, but because you need what I can do. You need these powers to protect your pack. And once you accept that you need me for that, accepting the mate bond will just be one more burden you learn to carry. He turned back to her, his eyes blazing. Is that really what you want? To be someone's burden? No, Celeste said. I want to be someone's partner, someone's equal, someone's choice, not just their fate. But I'll take what I can get, Achilles, because I've spent my whole life alone too. I know what it costs to keep everyone at a distance, and I'm tired of paying that price. They stared at each other across the study, two lonely wolves caught between duty and desire, between the safety of isolation and the terrifying vulnerability of connection. The mate bond pulsed between them, growing stronger with each passing moment, demanding acknowledgement. I can't, Achilles said finally. Not now. Not with everything that's happening. I need to focus on protecting the pack, on preparing for whatever's coming. I can't afford the distraction of caring about someone, Celeste finished. Of having someone who cares about you in return. That's not a distraction, Achilles. That's what you've been missing. That's what makes you strong enough to bear everything else. She crossed the room to him, moving slowly enough that he could retreat if he wanted to. But he didn't. He stood his ground as she approached, stood there as she reached up and placed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. Through her enhanced sight, she could see his soul, could see the loneliness and the longing he tried so hard to hide. You don't have to decide tonight, she said softly. But know this, I'm not going anywhere. Whether you accept the mate bond or fight it, I'm staying. I'm helping seal those breaches. I'm identifying your enemies. I'm standing beside you, whether you want me there or not. Achilles covered her hand with his own, pressing it more firmly against his chest. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. And you're the most isolated alpha I've ever encountered. We're quite a pair. Despite everything, Achilles laughed, a short, surprised sound that transformed his face. For just a moment, he looked younger, less burdened, almost happy. All right, he said. You can stay. Not because of any mate bond, but because you're useful. Because you can seal breaches and identify threats. Because the pack needs what you can do. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Celeste said, but she was smiling too. They stood that way for several heartbeats, her hand against his chest, his hand covering hers, the mate bond singing between them. Then Achilles stepped back, carefully putting distance between them again. You should rest, he said, his voice back to its formal tone. Tomorrow we'll seal another breach, and I'll start investigating the names on your list. Don't kill anyone without proof, Celeste reminded him. I'll try to restrain myself. She left him there in his study, surrounded by maps and reports and the weight of leadership that never lifted. But as she settled into his bed, their bed eventually, if they both survived enough to accept what they were to each other, Celeste felt something she'd never expected to feel. She felt home. Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Each morning, Celeste would seal one of the dimensional breaches, exhausting herself but successfully closing the wounds in reality. Each afternoon, she would work with Thalia to learn more about pack dynamics and to develop her abilities. Each evening, she would spend time with Achilles, discussing threats and strategies while carefully not discussing the mate bond that grew stronger between them with each passing hour. The 3 wolves on her list were investigated discreetly. The kitchen worker turned out to be planning to leave the pack, not to betray it. His shadows were guilt over abandoning his duties, not malicious intent. The guard was having an affair with another male's mate, which explained the darkness around her, but wasn't technically treason. But the advisor was different. Achilles' investigation revealed that the man had been in secret communication with a rival pack, sharing information about territory weaknesses and patrol schedules. When confronted, he attempted to flee and was killed by Theron in the pursuit. His death sent shockwaves through the pack and validated Celeste's abilities in the eyes of many who doubted her. But it also made her more frightening. Wolves began to avoid eye contact with her, nervous about what she might see in their souls. Some treated her with reverence, others with barely concealed fear. Only Thalia seemed comfortable around her, and of course Achilles, who was too stubborn to show fear of anything. 2 weeks after the tribunal, Celeste sealed the final breach. She collapsed immediately after, her nose bleeding, her body shaking with exhaustion. Achilles caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her easily in his arms despite the dozen wolves watching. "Get the healers," he commanded Theron. "Now." But Celeste shook her head weakly. "I'm fine. Just need rest. The breaches are all sealed now. The shadow wolves can't get through." "For now," Achilles said grimly. "But whoever created those breaches might try again." "Then I'll seal them again," Celeste murmured, already drifting toward unconsciousness. "That's what partners do. They face threats together." She felt Achilles tense at the word partners, felt him pull her more securely against his chest. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was his voice, quiet but fierce. "Yes, that's what they do." When Celeste woke, it was night. She was back in Achilles' bed. She'd been sleeping there for a week now, though he still retreated to his study each evening, and the room was dark except for moonlight streaming through the balcony doors. For a moment, she simply lay there, gathering her strength, testing the limits of her battered body. Then she sensed movement and turned her head to find Achilles sitting in a chair beside the bed. He was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "How long was I unconscious?" she asked. 8 hours, he replied. "The healer said you'd overtaxed your abilities, that you need to be more careful about how much energy you expend." "The breaches needed to be sealed." "Not at the cost of your health." There was something in his voice, an edge of worry that he couldn't quite hide. Celeste pushed herself up to sitting, wincing at the ache in her muscles. "I'm fine, Achilles. Just tired." "You're always tired lately," he countered. "You push yourself too hard. You seal breaches, investigate pack members, train with Thalia, and somehow find time to organize the pack healers and reform their entire supply system. When do you rest?" "When do you?" Celeste shot back. "You work until midnight every night, wake before dawn every morning, and haven't taken a single day to yourself in weeks. At least I sleep." "That's different." "How?" "Because I'm the alpha. This is my burden to carry." "And I'm your mate," Celeste said, finally speaking the words aloud, claiming the title he'd been avoiding. "Which means your burdens are mine too, whether you like it or not." Achilles stood abruptly, pacing to the balcony. Celeste watched him, watched the way the moonlight painted his profile in silver, watched his wolf prowling just beneath his skin. The mate bond between them was almost visible now, a golden thread that connected their souls. "I've been thinking," Achilles said finally, not looking at her, "about what you said, about partnership, about not facing things alone. And you were right." He turned to face her, his expression raw in a way she'd never seen. "I've been alone for so long that I forgot it was possible to rely on someone. I built these walls so high that I trapped myself inside them. But you," he shook his head, "you climbed right over them like they were nothing." Celeste rose from the bed, moving to join him on the balcony. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying the scent of pine and stone. Below them, the pack house was quiet, most wolves asleep at this late hour. "I didn't climb over your walls," she said softly. "You let me in. Maybe not consciously at first, but every time you asked for my help, every time you trusted my sight, every time you caught me when I fell, you were letting me closer." "I tried not to." "I know." Achilles reached out, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. His thumb brushed across her cheek, tracing the path where tears had fallen during the tribunal. "I'm afraid," he admitted. "I've faced down rival alphas, led my pack through wars, stared down death a dozen times. But the thought of accepting this mate bond, of letting you become that important to me, it terrifies me." "Because you think it makes you weak," Celeste said. "Because I know it makes me vulnerable. If something happened to you, if I lost you, I'm not sure I'd survive it." "Then don't lose me," Celeste said simply. "Stand with me. Fight beside me. Let me be strong where you're weak, and you be strong where I'm weak. That's what mates do." "And if I fail? If I can't protect you?" "Then we'll face that together too." She covered his hand with hers, pressing it more firmly against her face. "I've been alone my whole life, Achilles. I've wandered from pack to pack, never belonging, never trusted, never wanted. But when I look at you with these white eyes, I see home. I see belonging. I see a future worth fighting for." "You see too much," he murmured, but there was no anger in the words. "Maybe," she smiled slightly. "Or maybe I see exactly what you need me to see." Achilles stepped closer, eliminating the last bit of distance between them. His other hand came up to frame her face, and Celeste could feel him trembling slightly. This strong, fearsome alpha, shaking at the thought of finally accepting what they were to each other. "If we do this," he said quietly, "if we acknowledge the mate bond, complete it, there's no going back. We'll be bound together for life. Your well-being will be tied to mine. My enemies will become your enemies. Everything I am, everything I carry, you'll be taking on half of it." "I know," Celeste said. "And everything I am, these strange powers, this weird sight, the danger that comes from having abilities others fear, you'll be accepting all of that too." "I already have," Achilles admitted. "The moment I saw your eyes heal white, the moment I felt the bond snap into place, I knew. I've been fighting it because I'm stubborn and foolish and terrified, but I knew." "Then stop fighting," Celeste whispered. "Accept it. Accept me. Accept us." Achilles leaned down, his forehead coming to rest against hers. The gesture was intimate, vulnerable, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You're mine, my mate, my partner, my equal. I claim you, Celeste of the Borderlands, and I swear by the moon goddess herself that I will protect you, stand beside you, and never let you face the darkness alone." The formal claiming words released something inside Celeste, something that had been waiting since the moment their bond first formed. She felt the connection between them solidify, felt their souls intertwining, felt his wolf reaching out to twine with hers in a dance as old as their kind. "And you're mine," she responded, speaking the traditional response. "My mate, my partner, my alpha. I claim you, Achilles of the Shadowfang Pack, and I swear by the moon goddess herself that I will stand with you, fight beside you, and carry half your burden until the end of our days." The mate bond blazed between them, no longer a thin thread but a rope of golden light, strong enough to anchor both their souls. Achilles kissed her then, finally, and Celeste felt the last of his walls crumble. He kissed her like she was precious, like she was powerful, like she was everything he'd been missing without knowing it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Celeste's white eyes were glowing brighter than they ever had. She could see their future more clearly now, could see the paths that stretched ahead. Some were dark, full of battles and losses, but the brightest path, the one that pulsed with golden light, showed them standing together. Two wolves who'd found each other against impossible odds, facing down the darkness and winning. "The war your sister predicted," Celeste said quietly, still held in his arms. "It's still coming. The shadow wolves were just scouts. There's something bigger behind them, something that wants to tear down the barriers between dimensions." "I know," Achilles said. "But now, I don't have to face it alone." "No," Celeste agreed, smiling up at him. "Now you have a mate with white eyes who can see through dimensions. Lucky you." "Lucky me," Achilles echoed. And this time, when he smiled, it reached his eyes. They stood together on that balcony, two souls finally united, facing a future that was uncertain and dangerous and full of impossible challenges. But for the first time in either of their lives, neither of them was truly alone. And that, Celeste thought, as Achilles pulled her back inside and finally let himself be vulnerable with her, was worth every moment of pain it had taken to get here. The alpha had slashed both her eyes with Luna claws, trying to destroy what he feared. Instead, he'd awakened something incredible. Not just her powers, but their bond, their partnership, their future. She'd healed white, and now she could see other dimensions. But more importantly, she could finally see home. Did you like the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell us which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Shout out from our friends in Texas, England, New York, Canada, and more. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!